What would happen if you woke up disoriented on an unknown planet without knowing where you are or what awaits you in your next breath? You wouldn't have time to call for help. I don't even understand what's happening. I would only feel the pressure growing, the light disappearing, and the silence taking over. The universe holds places like this. They are not theories. They exist, and some are already being monitored by scientists right now. Today, you will meet the 3 most dangerous planets ever discovered outside Earth. You will visualize, feel, and perhaps even ask yourself, would I survive even for a few seconds? Each planet on this list represents a different edge of reality, and among them, there is one that still intrigues science itself. A planet where phenomena defy any attempt at explanation. If you could choose one planet to visit even though you knew you might not return, which planet would it be? Or is it better to accept that Earth is still the only safe place? Comment below. I want to see who would have the courage. The data exists. The risks are real. The universe has its own limits. But these 3 planets surpass them all. The observable universe spans more than 90 billion light-years in diameter. Within this space, the Earth represents just an irrelevant statistical point, and yet it is the only known place where life, as we understand it, has managed to thrive. Most of the planets identified to date present conditions so extreme that any form of human survival with current technology would be unfeasible from the first seconds. This is not theory, it's a finding. Science has catalogued more than 5,000 exoplanets outside our solar system, and many of them have toxic atmospheres, unstable gravity, intense radiation, or temperatures that vary between opposite extremes with absolute violence. Some rotate close to their stars, trapped by gravitational forces that distort their structure. Others have chemical formations that, in contact with any organic matter, would trigger immediate and lethal reactions. We're not talking about fiction. The data comes from spectroscopy, orbital analysis, and reflected light measurements. This is real information, processed by observatories such as Hubble, Kepler, James Webb, and networks of telescopes distributed around the planet. Despite this, the fascination with inhospitable planets only grows. There is an almost primitive curiosity in understanding how far the limits of the universe can go. What if, by accident or choice, a human being was thrown onto one of these planets? What would your body endure? What sensations would he experience? In the few seconds or thousandths before everything collapsed, could it be the sound of the atmosphere, the feeling of weight doubling, the immediate disorientation? Among all the records ever made, 3 specific planets stand out. Not because they are the biggest or the most distant, but because they present direct, concrete, and measurable risks to life. They are considered the most aggressive environments ever detected outside Earth. And now, let's find out what exactly makes each of them so threatening. The first layer of danger may seem visible, but there is something much deeper hidden beneath the surface of these worlds. The 3rd most dangerous planet, Jupiter. The deadly illusion, the largest planet in the solar system, carries a deceptive appearance. From afar, Jupiter appears to be just a sphere of gas in constant motion, with bands of color and a large spot that has been rotating for centuries. But behind this image, there is an environment where the physics we know stops working as it should, and where the human body would disintegrate in an inevitable, progressive, and irreversible way. Jupiter's first pitfall is the absence of a solid surface. Upon entering its atmosphere, you would not land, you would fall, and it would fall, and it would fall. The intense gravity would accelerate your body to absurd speeds, while the surrounding density increases steadily. Within seconds, you would be surrounded by clouds of ammonia and hydrogen, in an atmosphere capable of distorting your perception of direction, sound, and time. Pressure would become the most immediate enemy. About 1,000 times larger than Earth, It would crush your body so quickly that your organs would collapse before your brain could process what was happening. There would be no noise, just the feeling of everything getting heavy, then dark, and then the end. And even if there was protection, like a reinforced capsule, it wouldn't last long. The increasing depth and temperature, which can reach 24,000 degrees Celsius in the core, would cause any structure to fail. Furthermore, Jupiter hosts a colossal magnetic field. Much stronger than Earth's, it generates levels of radiation that would be fatal to the human body within minutes. It is this radiation that destroys electronic components, erases communication signals, and represents a technical challenge even for unmanned probes. For all this, Jupiter does not kill with immediate aggression. It disorients, deceives, and crushes slowly, a planet where there is no ground, no return, no margin for error, where falling is the only certainty and surviving was never an option. If this type of discovery makes you think, question, and want to see beyond the obvious, then before showing you the second most dangerous planet in the universe, leave your like. It shows that this content matters, and that you're part of a group that doesn't accept easy answers to difficult questions. It is the like that ensures that topics like this continue to circulate, being investigated and recommended to those who also feel that the universe hides more than we are ready to understand. Now, imagine a planet so close to Earth, which was once considered its brother, but today represents a threat to the very notion of survival. What made this world turn into the most toxic nightmare in the solar system? Second place will leave you in shock. The second most dangerous planet, Venus. Hell next door, Venus has been called Earth's twin brother. Similar size, similar composition, relatively close orbit. For a long time, scientists imagined it could harbor life or perhaps be a second home for humanity. But appearances can be deceiving, and Venus is the greatest example of this. The planet hides beneath its dense and bright clouds, a hostile environment at levels that surpass any extreme condition we know. Its average temperature exceeds 460 degrees, more than enough to melt lead. And this is not a localized exception. It is the standard. No point on its surface is below this level. This occurs because of an uncontrolled greenhouse effect fueled by a dense atmosphere composed mostly of carbon dioxide. Once the heat goes in, it doesn't go out. It's a thermal prison. In addition to the constant heat, the atmospheric pressure on Venus is 92 times greater than that on Earth. It's the equivalent of being about 900 meters deep in the ocean. The human body would be crushed without any chance of adaptation or protection. And if for some reason it survived the first few seconds, it would still have to face a third obstacle, the clouds of sulfuric acid. Venus does not have rain as we know it. Its clouds form drops that never touch the ground. They evaporate before falling in a corrosive cycle that remains active. But the air is saturated enough to trigger immediate chemical reactions with any organic tissue. It's as if the planet is constantly trying to dissolve everything that comes in. It is difficult to imagine that, decades ago, Venus was considered as a possible target for colonization. Today, it represents a warning about how planetary environments can radically transform. A reminder that apparent familiarity does not mean security. It's like you're cooked alive from the inside as your skin dissolves in acid. And that, in less than 2 seconds. Faced with planets like Jupiter and Venus, an inevitable question arises. Why keep looking at these places? We know that they are inhospitable, destructive, and unreachable with current resources. Still, we insist on studying them, mapping their compositions, simulating landings, imagining what we would feel if we were there. This says a lot about who we are, and perhaps about what we seek to understand. Curiosity is one of the most persistent forces in human nature. She is not limited to what is comfortable or possible. On the contrary, it intensifies in the face of the impossible. There is something about the unknown that attracts, and it's not always out of logic or utility. It's for the simple fact that it's there. How many times in real life have you found yourself faced with a risky choice, even though you knew the chances of it going wrong were high, and yet you went? Perhaps due to doubt, adrenaline, or something deeper, the desire not to die without knowing. This is a characteristic that moves us as a species, and it also puts us in danger. Exploring deadly planets isn't about wanting to inhabit those worlds. It's about understanding how far the conditions of the universe can go. What is the edge for a solar system? What is the point at which physics starts to look like something else? Studying these planets is also studying the Earth itself from a new perspective. When you understand how an environment where nothing survives works, the importance of an environment where everything flourishes becomes even more evident. Science doesn't look at Venus, Jupiter, or other lethal worlds just as astronomical curiosities. She observes them as fundamental pieces of a much larger puzzle, that of existence. Knowing where life cannot happen may be, ironically, what helps us preserve it where it is still possible. But if you think Venus is unbearable, number one on our list is so deadly that even light has trouble escaping it. The first most dangerous planet, HD 189733b. The storm that tears away at first glance, HD 189733b could go unnoticed. It is relatively and close, about 63 light-years from Earth, and has a deep blue glow that is reminiscent of our own planet's oceans. But the truth behind this serene look is brutal. This is, to this day, the planet with the most violent atmospheric conditions ever observed. And what happens there surpasses any imaginable scenario of destruction. HD 189733b is a gas giant classified as a hot Jupiter. It orbits very close to its star at such a short distance that it completes one rotation in just 2 Earth days. This proximity causes its atmosphere to be exposed to extreme levels of radiation, generating constant and intense storms that redefine the concept of hostile weather. Wind speeds on this planet exceed 8,700 km/h, almost 7 times the speed of sound. But the most shocking factor is the composition of these storms. They carry silicate particles. This means that in practice, it rains glass. Not as we know it, but in micro-fragments projected horizontally by supersonic currents. Imagine running into a hurricane where every drop is a sharp blade. There would be no shelter, there would be no time to react, just the immediate fragmentation of everything that touched its surface. Despite this, the planet has a visually attractive appearance. Its intense blue tone does not come from oceans or Earth-like atmosphere. It is the result of the dispersion of light caused precisely by silicate particles suspended in the air. What appears beautiful is, in fact, the reflection of an environment that destroys anything that tries to cross it. Its atmosphere is mainly composed of hydrogen and contains elements such as carbon dioxide and water vapor. But there is no breath possible. Any attempt to penetrate its layers would result in instantaneous disintegration, whether physical or structural. No current technology is capable of resisting the combined forces that dominate this planet. When even light can deceive, perhaps the entire universe is showing us that what seems obvious is not always real, and this opens up space for something much bigger than science has ever been able to explain. Now tell me something. What mysterious hypothesis about the universe has crossed your mind? Some crazy theory, an idea that seems impossible, but that you can't get out of your mind? Right here in the comments. The most thought-provoking ideas could be transformed into the channel's next videos. And who knows, maybe it's yours that we'll explore soon. But perhaps the most intriguing thing is not even what we have already discovered. but rather what still escapes our instruments, our equations, our logic. There are subtle signs, almost imperceptible, that suggest the existence of worlds where known laws simply do not apply. Worlds that not only exist, but may be silently shaping the universe. What if these places are so different, so extreme, that reality itself as we know it is already being influenced by them without us realizing it? A question that still makes scientists uncomfortable. What if the most dangerous planets in the universe are not the ones that we can see, but precisely the ones that we have not yet been able to detect? The idea may seem unlikely until it's considered more closely. Most known exoplanets have been identified by subtle variations in the light of the stars they orbit. Small oscillations, momentary shadows, gravitational distortions. But this method has clear limitations. It only detects what interacts with light or with other masses. And what doesn't interact? What doesn't reflect light? What moves outside the range of sensors or has a composition that makes it virtually undetectable with current technology? Scientists are already working on hypotheses involving dark planets composed of dense and opaque materials, which absorb almost all radiation and operate outside conventional detection. There are real candidates like TAR-ES2b, a planet known to reflect less than 1% of the light it receives. But what if there are others, even more extreme, totally invisible to our telescopes, but with active gravitational fields interacting with regions of the cosmos without leaving luminous trails? The idea of camouflaged planets in the fabric of space expands the limits of what we understand as a cosmic map. And the direct implication is disturbing. We may be surrounded by worlds that will never be seen, environments so lethal that nature itself took care of hiding them. And if that's true, what else is escaping our notice? What kinds of forces, physical or otherwise, could be acting around us without any visible sign? It's not just about finding dangerous places. It is about accepting that not everything that exists needs to be detected to be influencing. But there is an even more important question than how would we survive? And that's what we're going to talk about now. Faced with such extreme environments, the natural question is there any technology capable of resisting these planets? Would it be possible to create a suit that could withstand the suffocating heat of Venus or the brutal pressure of Jupiter's deep layers? What about the winds of HD 189733b? Would there be any shield, any structure capable of surviving for minutes or even seconds in that environment? The current answer is simple and straightforward. Not yet. But that doesn't mean that science has stopped. On the contrary, laboratories and space agencies continue to test materials with extreme thermal resistance, structures capable of withstanding pressures dozens of times greater than those on Earth, and shields that absorb or deflect radiation at levels that would be fatal to any living being. NASA, for example, develops robots specifically designed to probe atmospheres like that of Venus, with sensors that resist chemical corrosion and constant heat. There are already prototype probes that could slowly descend through the thick Venusian atmosphere, transmitting data until the moment of inevitable collapse. The goal is not to avoid destruction. It is delay it long enough for information gathering to be possible. In the case of Jupiter, the Juno mission has already orbited the planet, collecting fundamental data without ever approaching the deepest layers. And even then, the instruments had to be designed to withstand a level of radiation thousands of times greater than that present in Earth's orbit. The trend is for the exploration of extreme environments to be increasingly carried out by autonomous systems with embedded artificial intelligence and real-time decisions. Machines don't breathe, they don't feel pain, and they don't need to survive. They just need to resist long enough to register. Perhaps the future of exploration is not human, but robotic, not for lack of courage, but for biological limitation. The human body was not made to survive in these places, but the human mind was made to understand them. What you just saw is not something you find out there. This is information, hypotheses, and discoveries that few people know about, and that many people need to start questioning. Share this video with those who are also open-minded to the unknown. Share this discussion with those who are not satisfied with easy answers. Let's grow this community of people who see the universe as it really is, unpredictable, fascinating, and full of questions that haven't yet been asked. After all, perhaps the universe is testing us, or maybe he's just existing as he always has, indifferent, silent, extreme. But it is inevitable to think, why, among so many planets, precisely here do we find the exact conditions for life to emerge, evolve, and think about its own existence? As we observe Jupiter with its destructive gravity, Venus with its corrosive atmosphere, or HD 189733b with its piercing rain, a realization dawns. Earth is an exception. A rare balance, perhaps temporary, perhaps unrepeatable. The temperature, the composition of the air, the protection against radiation, the presence of liquid water. Everything works in concert, and everything can be lost more easily than we imagine. Have you ever stopped to think about how incredibly perfect our planet is for life? Not only to survive, but to breathe effortlessly, walk in an open field, see the clear sky, hear natural sounds, and touch the ground without being destroyed. Every detail on Earth that we take for granted would be an absolute miracle on any other planet we've ever detected. Exploring the universe helps us understand what's out there, but it also serves as a mirror for what we have here. Maybe the deadliest. Planets aren't pushing us away. Perhaps they are showing us something essential, that life is rare, fragile, and not yet fully understood, and that taking care of the only place that houses it remains the most urgent challenge of our existence. Looking at the cosmos is not an escape. It's a constant reminder that our home is still unique, and maybe it's the only one. Therefore, each discovery abroad must serve to increase responsibility here. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these planets do you think would be the most impossible to survive on? And if it were you, how long do you think you could survive in an environment completely hostile to life? Each of these worlds showed us a different form of destruction: pressure, temperature, radiation, storms. But perhaps the scariest thing isn't even what we saw, but what's still hiding out there. What if we created a series exploring the most dangerous planets in the universe, one by one? Because the more we look at these extreme environments, the more we realize that the unknown has no limits. And with each discovery, new questions arise. Being part of this is more than watching videos. It's participating in a journey through theories, evidence, and possibilities that challenge everything we already believe about the universe. Here, each question leads to a new mystery. And the only certainty is that there's so much more waiting to be revealed. Then subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive alerts, because some of the themes we are preparing won't go unnoticed for long. And now, since you've come this far, click on the video that appears on your screen. There is something there that will expand this line of reasoning even further. But be careful. What's behind the next question may be more real and closer than it seems. Go there. Continue the journey. Because here we ask what no one has the courage to ask: what would happen if